Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off today's video with a tale of retail revenge from the trenches of a college bookstore. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You want it used? You get it used. When I was 16, my very first job was at a college bookstore. The environment was great, and my boss was one of the most patient, understanding people I've ever met. Until rush started. It's no secret that college textbooks can be insanely expensive, and I've literally seen people fight over the cheaper used books. We had a policy that people could call up with their class schedules and preferences, and we'd go ahead and pull the books for them. If they didn't pay, we'd hold them for 48 hours, but if they decided to pay over the phone, we'd set them aside indefinitely. No long lines, no worrying if the book you needed was in. Pretty easy, right? One day I had a mother call to reserve her daughter's books, all used. I happily pull them for her and ask if she would like to pay now, otherwise we can only hold them for 48 hours. She says she'll be in tomorrow. I take her name and place the books in the back for her. A few days later, she's still a no-show, so as promised, I put the books back out. A week and a half later, around the peak of rush season, a woman comes up to me while I'm helping people with reservations or finding their books and says that she'd reserved her daughter's books in advance. I ask for the name, and when she gives it to me, I recognize it. I politely inform her that the books have been replaced, but would gladly help her find the books on the shelves. She grumbles, gives me the course list, and I go about collecting all of the books until I get to the very last one. This is the most expensive by far, and we are completely out of used copies. I let the mother know, and she goes ballistic. 5 solid minutes of spewing profanities aimed at me in a Christian college, no less, talking about how she paid so much for her daughter to go to the school so the books should be free, blah, blah, blah. I just nod and until she gets to the part I've been waiting for, my manager. She insists that she's going to get a brand new book for the used price and tells me to run along and fetch my manager so he can come out and apologize for inconveniencing her and give it to her for less than the used price. I plaster a fake smile on my face, take the book, and go into the back where my manager is. Here's where the fun begins. I went back and explained the situation along with her demand for an apology. This was at least the 10th time I've had to go back to him over a similar issue, and he was sick of it. He gently took the book from my hands, closed the door, and said, "She wants used, she gets used." He then proceeded to unleash all of the pent-up frustration and rage of the day on this book, writing, drawing, highlighting, scuffing, and eventually throwing it on the floor multiple times and jumping on it until the poor thing looked beyond used, and then happily slapping a used sticker on it before opening the door and walking out to the mother that was waiting for him. He handed her the book and with a look of shock on her face, asked him what had happened to the other one. He politely informed her that the only way he could sell her a book as used was, well, if it had been used, and since she insisted on that price, he had to follow the rules. She was stunned. He gave her his best customer service smile and told her she was welcome before walking into the back, whistling happily. Edit. Mourn for the poor book, but please don't feel sorry for the daughter. She was just as entitled as her mother with an even worse temper. I can recall 2 separate incidents involving myself where security had to intervene and take her out of the store because she became violent towards me after not getting what she felt she deserved. Edit 2. While it doesn't help the poor book that was sacrificed, we did book community service regularly. We would often receive shipments from our company that the school would turn around and forbid us to sell, i.e. Harry Potter is satanic and many classics were deemed inappropriate for a school of their standing. Rather than destroy them as they expected us to do, we would mark the front cover per company policy so that they couldn't be resold and then give them away to the students that wanted them for free. Over the time I worked there, we gave away hundreds of books rather than trashing them, much to the annoyance of the school. That's an epic tale of retail justice with a twist of creative problem solving. Your manager's approach to handling the entitled customer's demands by making the book used is both hilarious and genius. It's a unique way to adhere to the customer's request while also venting frustration in a harmless, though unconventional manner. And our second story. highly respected professional expected me to do extra work for zero compensation. This has fortunately been the only choosy beggar I've ever had to deal with in my 6+ years of being a fine artist. About 3 years ago, I was contacted to illustrate a children's book. The author is a well-known, well-respected professional and politician in my state, and the pay was $1,200 for about 20 pages of professional illustrations. This was my first children's book illustration gig, so I was stoked, and was afraid to ask for half up front as I was a bit naive and intimidated. I completed all the illustrations, met with the author, and she went wild over it. She said she'd be in touch about payment and when the book will be published. Fast forward about 5 months. She finally reaches out to say that the book wasn't able to get published and that she's upset as she was looking forward to it. So I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I'm still going to be paid, right? Nope, she wasn't going to pay me. I should have stood my ground and been adamant about getting paid, but I was a young artist and didn't want to burn a bridge with an accomplished author and professional, so I remained civil and chalked it up as a learning experience. I really should have cut my ties with this woman right then and there. Well, back in January, I was contacted to illustrate a political children's book for. Wasn't really my kind of thing, but I agreed because I'm now more experienced and not afraid to stand my ground and demand I get paid. The gig was $1,000 for 20 pages of artwork. Cool. But this time I demanded half up front and the other half when I complete the drawings. She agrees and I get paid $500 cold, hard buckaroonies. Awesome. This is going great so far. Or so I thought. I completed the 20 drawings, met up with her and the co-author, and they went nuts over them. Said they're perfect, blah, 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 blah. I asked if anything needed to be changed, and they said no. Cool. I was paid the rest of the $500. I thought this was a job well done, and was glad I decided to give her another chance. Maybe the last book was just a fluke, and she's actually good for her word. Nope. Fast forward to April. They need 4 additional pages done for the book. I said, cool, that'll be an additional $200. She was flabbergasted. Excuse me? We already paid you $1,000 and you agreed to do the artwork for this book. You can't ask for more money. She paid me to do 20 pages for $1,000. That's $50 a page, which is a hell of a lot cheaper than almost every other children's book illustrator I know. So I explained that I needed to be compensated for these extra 4 pages. She said she has no more money to give, which is bullcrap because I know she's loaded, and that without these 4 drawings, we won't be able to complete the book. Again, stupid me, not wanting to burn a bridge with this well-known woman, obliged and decided to create the extra 4 pages. She was happy. Cool, whatever. I still got $1,000 and another publication under my belt. This, however, was not the end. In August, she asked me to change 2 of the drawings I'd already done. Now remember, I asked her back in January if anything needed to be changed, and she said no, they're perfect. I was traveling during this time and wouldn't be able to complete them until October, and that I would only do them for $100. She, surprisingly, agreed to these stipulations. I come home, I get the artwork finished and let her know it's done and tell her to please send over $50 before I email the artwork to her, as I had a feeling she wasn't going to pay me. I wait and wait and wait and wait. No response. Until this evening. I got a text from her stating that she has not received my artwork and wondered where it was. I tell her I had completed it and was waiting on half up front before I sent it over to her. She freaked out on me and claimed that she was maybe going to pay me for the extra work, but it wasn't a definite. Maybe? She was maybe going to pay me for my work? I about lost my crap. She claimed I'm unprofessional, is disappointed in me, and that she thought she was doing a young artist a favor. I replied, I don't do artwork with the promise of maybe getting paid. I then told her all about the previous times I was disrespected by her and felt as though I've been taken advantage of as a young artist. I told her I will no longer send over the artwork and for her not to worry about payment, and that our professional relationship ends here. I'm still shaking from fear and anger, as I'm afraid she can ruin my reputation among other authors and artists. But overall, I'm glad I finally stood up for myself, even though it took about 3 years. I would ask for a name so we knew which politician doesn't keep their promises, but that wouldn't really change any opinions. And our next story. We are not in an HOA. My husband and I bought this house in 2021. We've had issues with our next-door neighbor the entire time. He makes snide remarks to my husband every time our yard isn't mowed every other day like his. For context, we live in a nice-ish neighborhood, but we're by no means wealthy. Our house is not in an HOA, but we've been invited many times and declined. He conveniently only says something to my husband about our yard when I'm not around. All the times that I happen to be in the yard when my husband is, he says nothing, just stares at us. So today, when my husband got home from picking up our kids, ages 2 and 4, said neighbor comes over. He didn't see me on the front porch, and he says to my husband, "Hey, do you think you ought to weed eat all this?" Talking about our large flower bed on the side of our house that faces his. We've always planned on landscaping this fall when we have more time and more money. My husband's very non-confrontational and sweet, and he noticeably was embarrassed and was like, "Yeah, I need to," etc. So I was like, "F that." I looked right at him and said, "If you're so worried about it, why don't you do it?" He started going off about some people take pride in their yard. That looks like crap, etc. So I said again, and like I said, if you don't like it, either do it yourself, build a privacy fence, or don't look. We're not in an HOA that we have to follow, so mind your own effing business. I then told him, "You're retired, so you have all the time in the effing world to landscape your yard. I'm sorry if that's on the bottom of our priority list right now." My husband and I both work full-time, more than 40 hours a week most of the time, and he knows this. Plus, we have 2 small children and everything that goes with that. He's in his early 70s. Like, I get it. Don't you think we know it doesn't look the greatest? The neighborly thing to say would be, "Hey, I know you guys are busy. Do you mind if I weed eat this for you?" He's honestly that concerned about it. Anyway, I feel like I embarrassed my husband for being a B-word. He said he wasn't embarrassed. I just know the neighbor made him feel like a piece of crap. And our last story. Homeowner sues HOA over excessive fees and wins, leading to dramatically lowered dues for the entire neighborhood. This wasn't me, but I lived in an HOA that got sued. This happened before I moved in. The HOA had contracted to pay for private snow removal and private security. To do this, they had to increase HOA dues. This was a neighborhood with single-family homes, by the way. Apparently, someone bought a house in the neighborhood and asked to see the HOA charter and other documents. The HOA gave this person the runaround, but eventually got it. Found out that the HOA charter had a set amount the HOA could charge in assessments, so they were charging more than the charter allowed. They were charging around $100 per year. So this homeowner sued the HOA over the fact they were charging more assessments than they could allow. Eventually won. Reasons why they won were mainly due to what the charter said, but also the HOA failed to defend why they had to get private snow removal and security when the city already provided it. But then the HOA had the audacity to sue the homeowner for attorney fees and lawsuits they lost. So the homeowner won again. I moved in somewhat shortly after this happened. This resulted in my HOA assessment only being $12 to $13 per year. The HOA also basically kept to their intended purpose of maintaining the common areas of the neighborhood, cutting grass, and minor landscaping. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.